Welcome to the Nicole Small Show, where we give you straight talk with no chaser. Here, we discuss issues from the White House to your house. And now, here's your host, Nicole Small.
Good morning and welcome to the Nicole Small Show. Today is Monday, April the 12th. Want to start off by paying our condolences to the family of Mr. Ray Solomon, who served as a mentor to so many in politics and community engagement. He worked for our council president, Brenda Jones. He was an executive board member and was the chair of the screening committee for the 14th Congressional District. Ray was really a good person. He will truly be missed, to say the least. I definitely think that if we don't get anything out of what we have endured over the last year, is that life is really too short. I can't even imagine, again, when the doors finally do open back up, not having Ray there, but also not having his partner in crime, Ms. Abinah Hogan, who we're still grieving over the great loss of Abinah to our community. This was definitely, once again, sudden, not expected. Ray contributed so much of his time to the people and to the community. And that's definitely irreplaceable. Let me say that. I definitely have learned some things from Ray. I appreciate the support that he has given me over the years, but I'll definitely miss seeing him at a lot of events and just the laughs and the good times, but also the lessons that he would teach you about some of these folks and their trickery in politics. Those were always some great conversations as well. I call him Trouble Ray. Trouble Ray, I am definitely gonna miss you. This is a huge loss. Again, to his family, my condolences. My condolences is all that I can say. The services are this week. Thursday, which is April the 15th, visitation will be at James H. Cole on Schaefer. That's right there at the corner of Puritan. And the funeral service will be Friday, and it will be at the Aretha Amphitheater. And I can't think of a more fitting location to honor the life of Ray Solomon. I just know that his spirit definitely is so pleased with them choosing that location. Good job. He loved being down there, and it's the right thing. It's a good fit. So rest well, Ray. You will be missed. Thank you for all that you have contributed to this city and to politics. Over the weekend, also, we lost a legend to the hip hop industry, DMX. We know that he had some issues and some troubles. And no, he did not take the vaccine, Lori, and the vaccine did not kill him. But, we know that he did have some long-standing challenges with some addictions, but very spiritual man. I don't know if anyone, if you're not that familiar with him, if you listen to some of the prayers that he would give, like definitely a connection. He was just a troubled soul. Isn't it interesting how many artists, the ones who are like the most talented, how spiritual they could be and how they seem to really have to fight those demons. You know, you look at Marvin Gaye and Even R. Kelly, say what you want to say about him, but his talent is definitely, you know, unmatchable. It is something about that, and I'm not saying that about all artists, but you know, historically, you look at them, and when they get on these drugs, it's just, it gets to the best of them, doesn't it? But he died at the age of 50 years old. He had 15 children, so you know, you have 15 people who have lost a father. That's sad in itself. So rest well, Brother X. And a couple of things coming up. So I just want to make an announcement about my campaign for city council at large. We have been very active making phone calls. Literature is in. We will kick off our Zoom meetings this week. So we're starting off with District 1 this Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and then at 6:30 we'll do District 2. All of these Zoom links you'll be able to find on my Facebook page and on my Instagram page later today. Thursday we'll do District 3 and 4 at 5, and then at 6:30 we'll do District 5, and then Saturday morning at 10 o'clock be District 6, and then the following Monday we'll be having a Zoom meeting with District 7. Again, I had asked several people throughout the city would they prefer just a citywide meeting, and they all said they would like to have smaller district meetings. So that will be the schedule. Again, you'll be able to find that today on the Facebook page. Also, what else? We'll be out on the 17th. We'll kick off doing some door knocking. I'm definitely looking for volunteers and some support. And thank you to all of you who have been volunteering already and helping me to pass out the literature, and more importantly, to engage directly with the voters. I so appreciate you. And the website will be up going live this evening. So anyone else who wants to sign up to be a volunteer, if you want to donate, you'll be able to do all of that. But again, the overwhelming response of support, I appreciate each and every one of you. Let's do this. Let's make the next 4 years the best 4 years. This is our last opportunity. Let's be clear. You thought that making sure that you push people to go and vote for Trump not to have his second term. Well, this is equally important. If we don't do something to change our circumstances this year with our city council and this role of mayor, we're in trouble. We are in big trouble. And I'm not just saying that because I'm running. I have been telling you that about how important this 2021 election is. If you allow for the mayor to be reelected, number one, after all that he has done, you better believe that you are creating more of a monster. You better believe that he will take full advantage of knowing that we don't think enough of ourselves, that we deserve better. And Lord forbid if he was reelected and you don't do something about having a stronger council who controls the purse strings, to have some checks and balances and some accountability around that role of mayor, then shame on you. Because you think it's hard for you to get a job now when they're telling you that they're giving away all these tax subsidies at your expense so we can have jobs to come into the city. But meanwhile, you and your family and the people in your community still struggling. If you think it's bad now that you see all of this development for housing and you can't name 3 people who can afford it within your network, if you think it's bad now that you can't buy the lot next door to you and they hoarding it for somebody else out of town, because all that's about is for them to come develop something to push you out. And they never have a plan B, any place for you to go. We talked about Black Bottom, right? How they displaced all of those people and they didn't have any place to go. That's what's going on now. And you still haven't heard one word about what they're going to do with this $859 million of stimulus money. They don't even think enough of you to have a plan in place. So keep it up. Keep it up. If we don't understand how important it is to make some significant changes this year, in the legislative and the executive branch, I don't know what else you need to see. I don't know how much more they have to show you to keep lying to say that, oh, about the neighborhoods, and you don't see a resurgence in the neighborhood. You see urban removal in the neighborhoods, and you see a resurgence in downtown. See, that's the reality. That's not an opinion. These are your experiences. Stop letting somebody tell you that what has happened to you has not happened to you. Stop allowing them to do that. We're going to have Elena Arata come on today. She's going to talk about these tax captures. You really need to get a better understanding on what's happening with these tax captures. We're also going to talk about what does defunding the police mean. In Minnesota yesterday, in Brooklyn, Minnesota, there was a 20-year-old who was pulled over because of a warrant, shot and killed. Shot and killed. The warrant wasn't a death sentence. Shot and killed. This behavior is still going on. Then in Virginia, there was a former Army lieutenant. Let me see what happened. Assaulted by, who pulled over a man and was threatening him. And the guy had his hands out of the window saying, you know, I'm afraid. And they said, you should be. They had all of these guns drawn for no reason. This is the reality that we're living in. And while I know that there are some people who say, well, you know what, we don't experience those issues in the city of Detroit because we don't have all of the mainstream news stories of people being killed to the degree like a George Floyd. I'm not saying people not assaulted and killed by the police unjustly. That's not my point. I just think that because we don't have the large media attention around our police department and so many incidents that are occurring or portrayed in the media, that sometimes, you know, in Detroit, we think that there's no need for change. So I think we need to have a better understanding of what does defunding the police mean. I think that maybe they should change the messaging because it seems like you don't want to fund any safety services. And so sometimes some people just shut down, but we need to have this conversation. In my opinion, and we'll talk to Elena about this too, I believe that the goal is for police reform, right? But also to make sure that we don't become having all of these incidents like George Floyd. But really and truly, remember what happened in Northland some years ago when they were on top of the young man in Northland and they killed him. I'm just saying there are some issues. There are some issues that we need to definitely address. And I believe in being proactive and taking preventive measures so we don't have a litany of incidents like that. But we have to have the conversation, right? And it needs to be a conversation of where we can also convey a message so that it's better understood to our community. Because what happens is so easily we'll have the administration to say, oh, they just don't want you to have any safety precautions. They want to fully police and govern themselves. And what they're asking for is better policing and resources. And I think that there is definitely some value added to that conversation, but we just need to make sure that we have a better understanding of what that looks like. Right? Because that's the important part, is that we're telling our own story, is that we're making sure that it's a collective effort, right? We can no longer afford to operate in silos, because you know where it gets us? It gets us with the high rate of gentrification. That's where it gets us. It gets us with being excluded out of the benefits that come along with more money coming into a city like Detroit, and we're the super majority, but we can't take advantage of those opportunities. That's where it gets us. If we don't understand our power collectively, we will continue to lose. And who wants to be the only person on a block that's doing well? That makes you a target. Nobody wants that. We need sustainable communities. A part of sustainable communities is making sure that we increase safety in the neighborhood. And this is where I do support this effort, is that we need to take a clear look at what's going on with this funding. 30% of the city's budget goes to police reform. What's happening with that money? I made a comment a couple of weeks ago, you have people doing news articles about buying Challengers for the police department. And, this is not a reality show. How are we investing right back into our communities to improve safety? This is important. And I can't get a clear answer on what happened to all of those police officers that they had directing traffic downtown. I just want to know, where did they go? Because they're not directing traffic in the neighborhood, I could tell you that. And for those of you who say, increase police visibility does not necessarily decrease the level of crime, I don't know. I beg to differ on that. But more importantly, what I want to know is that was coming out of our money. So what are they doing now? Sitting behind a desk? So that's why I think, again, this whole defunding the police, to look at reforming how the funding is used to make sure that it does come directly back into the community to, again, create increased safety, which helps us to create more sustainable communities. And I also think that within that conversation, we need to talk about, listen, what's going on with not allowing our people to have access to these jobs? One of the direct results of poverty is definitely crime. It's just a reality. You can't build this glass wall and you allow for everyone else to come into the city and they see how they're reaping all of these benefits. And then when it comes time to make sure that some of our people having access to these economic opportunities, oh, you're not qualified, or they don't even know how to get them because everything is kept under the radar because they're hoarding land. Okay, let me just tell you what's going on now. Not only are they hoarding land, they're hoarding jobs and access to money. That's the problem, away from the majority of Detroiters. And it's all intentional. It's all intentional. So we definitely need to have a conversation, again, about what does this mean to defund the police? Do we have enough support around it in the city of Detroit too, is something that I'm going to want to talk to Elena about, if we have enough support around the city to see that actually happen. So let's bring our guest on now. Good morning, Elena. How are you?
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no, we love to have you here. It's always going to be a great conversation. So let's start off with the tax captures, and then I want to move into talking about defunding the police. Excuse me, this was a conversation that came back up in the media a couple of weeks ago. I know that the Library Commission has been addressing these tax captures, and I don't know if citizens really realize how this can lead us, be a part of potentially leading us back into a bankruptcy. But talk to us a little bit about the tax captures and why this is something that we need to pay more attention to, because we can't depend on the mainstream media to bring us the story.
Okay. And I was thinking about this one of these days on your show. I'm going to Facebook Live from my phone and show you my neighborhood. I live in Corktown. I live on Leverett. It's right off of Michigan and Rosa Parks, and I've lived here about 27 years, and I've lived here all other times in my life, including being among the first tenants in the Clement Kern Gardens around the block from me.
Well, your community has drastically changed in the last 20-something years. I could tell you that over there.
I want to talk a little bit about that, and especially I always say this to neighbors when they are in this discussion. They get very uncomfortable because it's almost completely white here now. This used to be a Mexican neighborhood, Irish and Mexican neighborhood, and I'm also Irish and Mexican, so I have deep.
I didn't know you were Irish too.
Yeah. My mother's Irish and my father's Mexican. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons that I have a very particular view of racism. I have a very intimate view of racism. And you know that people who have multiracial families or biracial families have racism up close and personal in their own lives. So you have a very particular view of it. You see it, you get to hear things that other people don't hear, let me put it that way. So, when I ask about this all the time, I said, do you think that there's covenants in Corktown? Because everybody that moves here is white. Everybody that moves here is white. I did see a Black family move in to one of the new house. It's an old house that got rehabbed. And I almost stopped and asked him for his autograph. We had a long conversation about that. I've only seen one Black person move in to the housing. I'm talking about the housing or the co-ops. I'm not talking about apartments. Around the block from me is Clement Kern Gardens, which is 84 units of public housing, and it's about 95% Black, and about maybe the rest is Latino. There used to be a lot of Latinos living in there. Now there's hardly any. And that's the only Section 8 housing that's a solid block, and it's going to be demolished. It's going to be demolished. The house behind me is almost $400,000 is what it sold for, which is crazy. These
prices are out of control.
I'm talking about
this is insane.
There's no schools that you can send your kids to. When I ask the people where they're going to send their kids to school, they talk about Cranbrook. They talk about a lot of kids are in Waldorf, but nobody's using these public schools. And that's what I want to bring this around to. There's a very direct correlation between these developments, these high cost developments, which are by definition housing for white people. Not all white people, because not all white people can afford to live there, but I have not seen any Latinos and any Black people move into the new developments. On my block here alone, there's a 6-unit townhouse that's probably 100 years old that got rehabbed. They've just sold every one of the 6 units for $699,000 each. $700,000.
There's nothing over there that screams $700,000. That's just absolutely insane.
And there's going to be a hearing.
Guess what? And the police are not that much more visible over there than they are anywhere else either. Yeah, and this is the problem.
The police are sure not going to live over here either. They can't afford to live over here either. So there's no residency. I have heard police say,
look at what it does to your tax base. Look at what it does to the tax base in the neighborhood. Like somebody's buying a house for $700,000 over there. Like, my God, that is just really, that's insane. It's sheer insanity.
Watch what it gives a developer. Watch what it gives a developer, okay? So if my taxes here are $1,400 a year, a house that sold, this is what the real estate guy was telling me, because I called this realtor, I called the Latino guy who I know who's a realtor, and his name is up on 2 houses side by side in Corktown. And I said, what are you selling these houses for? And he said, well, the problem is going to be in the taxes. He said, when people get their tax bill, the new people that are paying these huge prices for these houses, if I'm paying $1,400 a year, the new person pays $14,000 a year if they're buying a $700,000 house. Let's just give that it's a hypothetical figure, but it's not far off. A tax bill would be about $14,000 a year to live right here. I'm telling you, to live near bars and white people. That's basically live near bars and white people, because most people here are working from home. A lot of people are involved with Quicken Loans. But if their tax bill goes to $12,000, $14,000, here's what happens. The $1,400 I paid, the amount that it used to be, or the stable amount, goes to the city. Every other bit that went up goes into the developer's pocket, which means it doesn't go to the libraries, it doesn't go to the schools. Now watch. Think of this continuously happening, block by block. Now pretty soon, all the Clement Kern Garden black people are going to be run out. So that's going to be a development that does this. There's going to be this place on my street that's doing that, right behind Firestone on Michigan Avenue, where you can walk and drop off for an oil change. Right behind there, there's I think a 14-unit building going up. There's no parking. The downtown storage unit, the storage place where everyone uses, it's been in the neighborhood hands for generations, of a family that's lived here for generations. That's sold, and now there's discussion about what to do with that. Are they going to make it a parking structure? They're going to make it a community center. They act like people have anything to say about it, but we don't. The developers are going to have the last word with Doug in a back room, in a back Zoom meeting.
Don't forget her. She has a lot to say about the development over there.
Because she's on that community benefits thing. I'm telling you,
it hasn't benefited the community at all.
And there are no black people and no Latinos working on these construction sites. I'm telling you, if you go by there and look at it, you will see a 1950s scenario of white people building, white people buying, and you would never know that this was a majority black city. Now, but the problem with this development is this: if this keeps on expanding, and it doesn't seem to be stopping during pandemic.
No, it's getting worse.
Yeah, all that money that's not going into the public good, okay? But they get to use these roads. They're using all the infrastructure. So the potholes, the roads, the lighting, everything else, the tenants are using that, right? The people, the residents are using that, but they're not paying for it like you and I are. So rich people aren't paying anything to the tax base. They're paying it to the developer. It's not that they don't have to pay taxes. And I can't even imagine that they're paying the same kind of car insurance that Detroit residents have been paying all this time. I don't believe it. I don't believe that people.
Let's talk about this. Doesn't this has all the hallmarks of what happened in 2007? Remember when everyone was pulling all of these home equity loans out of all of these houses, and so then they were being over mortgaged, and then the whole bottom fell out. That's what I feel like is going to happen here in Detroit. Who in the hell would pay $700,000 to live up? Let me tell you what $700,000 should be getting you, okay, around here. Nothing here, period, unless you're going to get a whole floor on some waterfront property, and I mean on some waterfront property with garage parking too, and I better have full security. That's what $700,000 But for the most part, listen, you could go to the suburbs. I mean the real suburbs. I'm not talking about y'all who think because you live across 8 Mile, you live in the suburbs, when I can walk to your neighborhood and see the same people I see in mine in the city of Detroit. I mean real suburbs. I mean the real good part of Birmingham, not the little shack houses. I mean the real suburbs, or living out there really in a gated community in Sterling Heights or something, where you gonna get the best grocery stores, you'll have all type of shopping, you're gonna get the best schools as well, you're gonna get clean parks, and you're gonna get top-notch
and car insurance.
You are going to respond, and your car insurance is going to be a heck of a lot less. Okay, that's $700,000. Not what you're talking about. This is absolutely insane, and they're doing the same thing on the east side. Look at all of this development up and down Van Dyke and Kirchhoff, and these prices. And I'm thinking, who want to live in these cubby holes? And they just slapping up $300,000 like it's nothing. Or they asking people to rent these little small apartments for like $1,600. I'm thinking the drugs must be good. The drugs must be real good, because I wouldn't care if you can't afford it. Why would you pay that? You could not be that desperate.
Well, but also the creation of an incredibly different class and race. So you have a very different experience if you don't have to worry about schools and libraries, if you don't have to worry about transportation. You're just going to come here and live like it's a party. It's a party. So I see a lot of young white couples with babies up and down my block now. I can't tell you how many people have dogs.
Don't talk about, because we're gonna have more dog parks than we are gonna have parks for the kids. So you might as well just get that up. All right, everybody got a dog.
They spend $30 million
except for me, but everybody have a dog. But let me ask you this: You said that originally when you moved there, moved there 20 something years ago, that there was the most of the population and community was made up of Irish and Mexican. So tell us, where has the Hispanic community migrated to?
Well, a neighbor around the block, because my Mexican family's from here in Corktown. So my dad's family grew up here in Corktown.
We can't see you, Elena. You moved to.
Sorry.
Okay, there you go.
My dad's family is from here in Corktown, and a lot of the Mexican people, everybody that was here just about in Detroit during the period of time of the school takeovers and before that. My kids went to Western and Cass and Holy Redeemer during the school takeovers.
Okay.
And there was nothing. That was the first takeover. The second round, when I was on the board, a lot of people left and moved to places. Mexicans moved to places like Southgate, Allen Park, Lincoln Park. Those places are like booming Mexican migration because since we're Southwest, then the upward mobility path is Southwest. You know how, like on the east side of Detroit, when white people moved out, they moved like across 8 Mile, Warren, Sterling Heights, that way. But Latinos moved southwest, and so those places. But the schools are decent. The schools are, you have a library and a school, but that's what most people with families are looking at. It's not far from work, wherever work would be if you were in a plant, or if you're, a lot of people are like, even after they lifted residency, forget it. Everybody left. Everybody who
the reason why I asked you that is because I'm starting to see a drastic change in Southwest Detroit.
It's getting major gentrified.
Yes, a Mexican village. I mean, if you look at the cost of living over there, it's drastically changing as well.
But I'll tell you what else. The reason it's getting so deeply gentrified in Southwest is because of the nonprofits, especially Southwest Solutions.
I never thought about that.
Let me explain.
There are quite a few nonprofits over there.
Yeah, but the one that's got the housing stock is Southwest Housing
Solutions.
Yeah, Southwest Solutions used to be Southwest Detroit Community Mental Health back in the day. And I did
back up. No, wait a minute. They used to be what?
Southwest Detroit Community Mental Health.
So what happened to that portion?
Okay, they remained. Now listen to me for a minute, because this is worth a lot longer discussion, because this is really important, because I'm hearing the same thing happening to the tiny houses over here.
Okay.
On Lodge Freeway.
Yeah, and let's talk about those tiny houses, because that's a whole nother, and these container homes, but go ahead.
But the tiny houses is following, it looks like the path that Southwest Solutions did. Now, Southwest Solutions, around in the late 80s or early 90s, when real estate started to hit hard, they got another status, which is a for-profit status, and they became a housing. They have their own mortgage company. They have a very close relationship with Chase Bank. So Southwest Solutions started buying up property and renting it to people at affordable, moderate rate income. So they had people, now watch this. People don't like to hear this. You watch this. They had people that are on medication. Their counseling services come from Southwest Solutions. Their medication came from.
They getting a check. And they getting a check from the state.
And they're getting their rent vendored.
So it would be direct deposited directly to Southwest Solutions so they could get their rent. And these are the same people that they're counseling for mental health illness. Get out of town.
No, let me fill you in here. They have rental offices right inside Detroit Public Schools that they got when they're with their cozy relationship with the emergency managers. Because currently the director of Southwest Solutions is a former emergency manager from Pontiac. Those people are nothing but bankers. Now, let me explain this. They had a rental office right inside the school. Wouldn't any landlord love to have that? Every child in that school is low income because it's Detroit Public Schools, and they can get their voucher housing, their mental health services,
It's like one-stop shop.
It's like they own the body and they own the house. And if for every time they evicted somebody and brought somebody new in, they would get another tax credit. So when people can't follow the rules because they're mentally ill, then they could put them out and get a new person in there. So every month you would see the dumpsters in front of their houses. And they had housing that they built, they had housing that they rehabbed. They got Piquette Square, which is where the veterans are over there on Milwaukee and John R. They had no expertise in veteran services, and all the veteran services were up in arms that Southwest Solutions got 121 unit building on Milwaukee and John R., which is in the heart of gentrification land. They keep that building for 7 years. They get it completely rehabbed on the government's dime. They get the people, they get everything for free from O'Brien Construction, everything that they get, they're getting through a hookup with the Duggan administration in 7 years, 7 short years, as we know now. That flips to market rate, and they own the building. They own so much property. And those are tons and tons and tons of units that don't have to pay property taxes because it's a nonprofit. So you have not only the developers doing this, but Southwest Solutions and those such like Cass Community Center, community services where the tiny houses are, they're also developers. So they got the people in here. They say that in 7 years you can own that home. At that Detroit Will Breathe rally on Saturday, they combined it with Detroit Eviction Defense. You heard people talking about that they were getting evicted from the tiny houses. Now, you're not supposed to be evicted from there. That's supposed to be housing for people, right? But instead,
I was going to say, I didn't even know that they could evict people from the tiny houses. But go ahead and continue.
Homeowners. This is worth deeper investigation, because these nonprofits are a parallel government that do not have to pay taxes. They don't have to pay attention to any discrimination laws with regard to their hiring, because you can see who they're hiring all throughout Southwest Detroit. It's like a colonial takeover of what had once been. And because I'm very aligned with LACED, Latin Americans for Social and Economic Development, and a couple of the other really old school, they're very Latino-centered organizations that have Latino director and Latino boards. They were very concerned about all these young white people coming in and taking over the agencies and the nonprofits, because we got a letter several years ago through LACED from Skillman saying that all the money that Skillman is putting into Southwest Detroit is no longer going to go to the Latino agencies. It's all going to go to Southwest Solutions because they had the capacity. So they gave them all the money.
But let me say this. That is the spin that they always put on it. Every time there's a huge amount of funding to come in to address it, I don't care if it's housing, or mental health, whatever it's going to be, whatever the issue is going on right there. If it's a program to supplement the education of the kids not getting DPS, you notice how they always start off where, everyone can come in and you could take advantage and get these dollars to help, support this group of people. And I promise you, it's before you blink your eye that they're sitting right back at the table, and they always identify one, maybe two, if you're lucky, organizations, and they always tell us it's because, they have the capacity to do the work. But these other smaller organizations have actually been doing the work, and they directly touch the people, when these larger ones are just exploiting the people and their issues, because that's what this is. This is exploitation. And you're absolutely right when you talk about how they're getting these tax credits. I'm gonna say this. I remember when I used to when I worked for I did HR regionally, right, for a supermarket, a grocery store. You know why they would always hire people with mental health challenges and illnesses? Because they got a tax credit off of it. So what they're doing over there at that Southwest Solutions, you talking about a money grab. You're right. They don't have to pay taxes because it's in the name of their nonprofit. Then you're also getting money for each person that you sign up, right? Who you give this counseling to. They're getting a ton of money off of that too, to help them for counseling for mental health challenges. Then you're offering them housing, right? And I guarantee you there's another component in there to help them find some type of employment or to help, like if they have children, they make even more money. If they have kids or something like that, they're getting even more money off of that person. This is absolutely insane. I did not know that they used to be the organization to assist people with mental health illnesses. I never knew that.
Primary one. Now there's another thing. It's called pilots. That's called payments in lieu of taxes. Pilots. You know, we should have some expertise on here, like Chase Cantrell or somebody, to discuss what this really means, because these are tax payments that are not made to the city of Detroit. Right. They can make a little payment. It's like giving it's like a voluntary contribution instead of paying taxes. Now, I wish I could do that. Don't you wish you could do that? Too. Except that they're using in a massive quantity the collective goods that we're paying for. So the roads, the lights, everything else, we're paying for all that. Not the libraries, because they don't mind not having libraries, because if you have an educated populace that has decent schools and public libraries, then we're not going to have to keep on writing letters to the Illich Holdings thanking them for giving homeless people food. They have created an incredible disparity under Duggan's watch, and from bankruptcy to this point. This is an incredible disparity, and there's so much money here. There is so much money, but the poor people, the poorest people, the people who have mental challenges are concentrated into these buildings. So the people in Southwest Detroit that were regular residents there started getting upset about the number of mentally ill people up and down Verner, all around these places without any kind of supervision, because at one point they stopped giving transportation from the apartment buildings where they hold all these people. They warehouse people, and they didn't give them any guidance or leadership or support. So you just have all these people out here concentrated into buildings that they're going to flip and put the people out. Then they'll buy other buildings like on the east side, because Southwest Solutions is all over the city now. They can put another building on the east side, and you're going to see all these mentally ill people come to another neighborhood while they warehouse them there for the 7 years, then flip that and push them. All they do is move them around. And one of the things that we held a hearing, this is one of the elders in my community, this is now going on 10 years ago, held a hearing because one of the elder, she was a nun, a Hispanic Latina lady, said to me, we have to stop Southwest Solutions. We've got to do something about them because they are really changing the character of our neighborhood, meaning that we're losing the cultural fingerprint, which had been our community. So I held a hearing. This was really hard to do because people were really, we didn't know what to do. She said, we have to stop Southwest Solutions from the takeover of Southwest Detroit and the crushing of the Latino community, because they have all the contracts with the Latino kids. They have all the contracts. You'd see groups of Latino teenagers. When I was on the school board, they had these white Harvard cleaned up young women at the city council with a group of Latinos telling them that they wanted their schools taken over by the city. They were literally taking our children and turning them away from the Latino leadership in the community. That's one of the things, that's one of the axes that I've had to grind, the beef that I had with Raquel Castañeda Lopez on the city councils, because she came from that group. They put her up.
Okay.
So, and when you see her disrespect the elders in our community, the Latino leadership, that's what the nonprofits teach them to do. They teach them to turn away from the elder leaders in the community, and
that's so they can brainwash them.
They discredit us so that they can go with their plans, because we would have never supported looting public education and putting them under the school, under the city council and everything else. But if you, that's how you've been trained as a quote unquote, you watch out for these young people that say they're organizers, because they have been trained by these nonprofits. And but
that's our fault, though, and I'm going to tell you why. Hold on, let's take a caller. Good morning. Welcome to the Nicole Small Show. You have a question or comment?
Yeah, good morning. How you doing this morning? I have a comment.
Go ahead.
On that, that's the root shots.
Yes.
And I personally know people who've been dealing with them, and they do be doing some fucked up shit. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, now
they warehouse, like y'all said, all of that. They doing all of that. Warehousing people. You see what I'm saying to you? I'm talking about mentally ill people too. People that's fucked up.
Okay, let's watch our language. Go ahead.
I mean, people that's messed up. I forgot where we at. I'm sorry. But people that's messed up in the head, right? And they like I know like 3 or 4 people. They got a building on 8 Mile and Lasher where they doing that at, where they warehousing mentally ill people. On 8 Mile and Lasher, and they subsidize their rent. That's what she was talking about. Like they have to pay like say the rent is like $700. They have to pay like $200, but the company get the $500, and they treat them. I'm talking about they treat these people just like she said. They have them in there, and then pick them, and then they put somebody else up there because ain't no shortage in mentally ill people. You see what I'm saying to you? And like you said, they got $800 million, right? They got Biden sent this straight to the cities, right? We're not going to see $1 of that because we didn't see $1 of that 100 million, did we?
No, they gonna keep the money now. I agree with you on that. But
if we see $1 of that 100 million, they supposed to.
Nope. But also, I think that we need to pay attention to the fact that the fact that there's such limited resources for our people who have suffer from mental illness to go. So it makes it easier for these organizations to exploit them. I mean, you need housing, right? Listen, Detroit, we might have some nice days, but for the most part, this definitely is not a place that you can live.
Miss Small, why do you think everybody's going crazy? Because everybody is not secure. When you secure, right, you ain't got no. See, like, right, when the security, like when a woman married a man, guess what she married him for? She married him for security.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying to you? For security, when the people feel secure, the people won't be acting crazy. The people won't.
No, I mean I disagree, but no, I mean even if they had there are some people who have mental illness who need, they need real treatment, is what I'm saying. And I don't care if they have a place to live. These organizations are wrong. Like these challenges that these people are experiencing, they should not be exploited because of that.
Let me say
they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect.
But let me
go
ahead.
Okay. What's the movie?
And then I'm gonna hang up.
What's the movie?
It's called Eradicate All the Roots, and it's on HBO Max. And it's by this guy. His name is Raoul Peck. He made the movie. Him and a couple other people. Okay. But it's a documentary. Everybody needs to watch it because it tells the ugly truth about America, and it breaks down everything that they done, like not just America, but Europeans. Period. The white race. It breaks down everything that all the savagery that they have put forth, from the Crusades, from to slavery to Hitler. They break it down how it's all the time. Like
okay, well we gonna take a look at it. Thank you, brother, for calling in. We appreciate you. And it's on HBO.
HBO Max.
Okay.
HBO Max. It's called Eradicate All the Roots.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Elena. What were you saying?
The thing I wanted to mention is that when the mental hospitals closed, then there was a privatization, like you see the group homes.
Governor Englander.
Right. But you see that these group homes where they have people warehoused and they have very, very limited oversight or supervision. There's nobody to see how the people are living. And they're literally warehoused. But Southwest Solutions has taken that to an institutional level. So they have entire buildings where people are living who are all challenged, and all the families in the community who have, a lot of people have somebody in their family who's like that, who needs, they can't work, they can't, they need to be supervised because they have some problem that requires that somebody takes care of them. But instead they're in these buildings where nobody's taking care of them, and all their neighbors are the same. All their neighbors are in the same boat. So you have a building over on West Grand Boulevard that had about 16 units in it, and the people are complaining that they're overrun with bed bugs, overrun with roaches. They have absolutely no power to improve their situation because their rents are vendored directly to Southwest Solutions. And Southwest Solutions owns this fabulous narrative that they take care of the community, that they're so good, and so many people work for them. They have so many buildings. They have them on Waterman. They got them on Michigan Avenue, giant buildings that they got for free, rehab by the government, that they house their people in. There was a building over here on Rosa Parks, right at the corner of my street. It was a Black-owned building in a valuable area right here on Rosa Parks between Michigan and it was on Rosa Parks between Michigan and Bagley, the whole expanse. And Southwest Solutions had a little Head Start in there. There was all these, Matrix Head Start was in there. There was a whole bunch of little nonprofits. Do you know that Southwest Solutions purchased a building on Michigan and Campbell that's a gigantic building right by Junction in Michigan? They rehabbed the building, and once they finished rehabbing it, they went over to this other building, and they told all the people in all those little nonprofits that they could have a year of free rent if they would come over here to their new building. They're blockbusters. They went over there, all the people that in the neighborhood said they didn't want to go, but they didn't have a choice because their nonprofit said, we get a whole year of free rent over here on Campbell. That's how they got their tenants in that building. And they caused this building to go into foreclosure. Do you know who bought that building when it went into foreclosure?
Who? Gilbert?
No, they did. They got it because they caused it to go into foreclosure by pulling all the tenants out of it and putting it into another building that they got for free and got a rehab.
So then they turned it into another housing unit?
Then they sold it again, and Ford just tore it all down because guess what? They had Head Start in there, they had Matrix, and guess what they found out? That it was so toxic that it couldn't be rehabbed. So they had all these little kids in there for 20 years. And
so you know, well, whoever, when they sold it, if it was so toxic, that means that they got another tax credit off of this Brownsville tip. I guarantee you that.
It was Lincoln Brass. So toxic. It was Lincoln Brass. So of course it was industrial in another period of time.
But do you see how they have long-term planning?
Yeah.
They went to such great lengths to tell these people, we'll allow you to get free rent for a year. So they could pull them out of that building. So they could target the building, force the people who owned it at the time, the Black person or the Black family, to be so desperate to probably sell it for a lot cheaper than what they should have, right? And then they buy it and then they flip it. Now, if that wasn't planned, I don't know what was.
To go into foreclosure. They caused it to go into foreclosure and then they sold it. And Ford just tore it down. Ford just completely leveled that whole area. From that building was there for over, that used to be like old school people in Detroit. That was the Cunningham's warehouse. All of that stuff all over there. And it's all of it is, it's unbelievable how much privilege they have to be able to do these kinds of things, because they can get something out of the land bank. They can get something everywhere. They can grab all this property and never pay taxes on it. Not only not pay taxes on it, but get the rent from it from the people who are subjected to them. And it's not going to end until we get rid of Duggan. It's not going to end until we get rid of the council.
So do they do a community? Is there a community land trust as a part of this program? So they're not even developing where the people can eventually become owners. Let's take a quick break. This is amazing. It's really sickening. We're going to take a quick break. Elena, when we come back, I want you to finish the conversation about those tiny homes, because we didn't figure that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Before we go into the defunding of the police. We'll be right back. We're just going to take a quick break.
Okay.
Maybe.
Tune in. Tune in to the Nicole Small Show, Mondays and Tuesdays from 8 to 10 a.m., where you'll get straight talk with no chaser. If you miss a show, then you won't know. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook.
Okay.
Tune in to the Nicole Small Show, Mondays and Tuesdays from 8 to 10 a.m., where you'll get straight talk with no chaser. If you miss a show, then you won't know. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook.
Welcome back to the Nicole Small Show. I am joined by my guest, Ms. Elena Arata, and she is giving us a wealth of knowledge about tax captures alone and what's going on with these nonprofit organizations over in Corktown. Elena, before the break, we had talked a little bit about those tiny homes. Tell people where the tiny homes are, just for those who are not familiar.
Okay, they're over at, I want to say Webb, and if you go up the Lodge Freeway, you know, Teresa Kelly and I walk, she's my walking partner, and we walk all over the place. She lives in Highland Park, and sometimes we walk from her house up to the Oakman. Is it Oakland? Mm-hmm. You can cross over. And
Oakland?
Yeah, Oakland. And you can cross over the freeway bridge. It's not too far from the Detroit Repertory Theater. It's really right on the service drive,
like Davidson in the Lodge area.
And you can see, if you drive down the Lodge, you see a lighthouse, like a building that looks like a lighthouse. Mm-hmm. That's the area where all these tiny houses have been built. And I wish I had the name of the person, but I'm sure we can get it from Detroit Eviction Defense. Terry and I were walking over there regularly and looking at it, because Terry, you know, we're old, so we're always like, I'm going to get rid of this house and get a little tiny place. And that's her kind of thing, because she lives in a nice big house in Highland Park. And she said, I'm going to get rid of that house and get a tiny house. And we always look at those, and they really are tiny. I mean, they're like maybe 500 square feet or something. They're brand new, and they're on these lots there was nothing there. You know, it was kind of just, it's right at the freeway though. It's right at.
Who developed them? But tell the people who developed them.
Cass
who came up with that concept?
Yeah, Cass Community Services. Mm-hmm. Cass Methodist. You know, and it's Faith Fowler is the director. And now I'm only telling you this from what I heard from this woman at the Detroit Eviction Defense, but I knew something was cooking, because if you're watching this stuff, I'll give you a few little signs of when you pay attention. I always hear the sort of I hear the buzz of something that's going to happen, and I can say 20 years hence, and people think I'm crazy, but it's coming. You can see it coming. When we tried to cross over onto the freeway bridge to walk over to where the tiny houses are, because we just check out how many new ones they built. Mm-hmm. They're real sweet. They're really sweet. It's like a homeless person can have a house, and they're pretty little houses. They're brand new. The freeway bridge was blocked. Like somebody took construction materials and blocked it so you can't walk over the walking bridges over the freeway. There's fences on them. They are owned by the Department of Transportation. They were blocked off, like boarded up on both sides, so you couldn't walk over there. We had to walk all the way down to Webb, come up the freeway, come back up. And when we got over there, we talked to the people that were outside their house. There was a couple people that were outside that we talked to, saying, why is it that this is blocked off? And this woman who lived there, she was an older woman. She said she was sweeping up. I said, why did they block this off? And she goes, oh, the director asked the police to do that so that, people can't get into these houses. It's a public bridge that you walk on. It's not a driving bridge. It's a pedestrian bridge. So you can't.
So DPD. So wait a minute. DDOT had DPD to block that off.
Yep. And it's not the only one. There's two of them that you would walk from Highland Park. You can't walk from Highland Park to get to the tiny houses. You got to drive or walk all the way around. And it's another, it was another mile onto our walk.
Mm-hmm.
But we did it because we wanted to see what was up. So
because you were going to get to the bottom of the story.
Yeah,
we know.
Then you get over there and there's all this land and there's more places where you can see they're going to build more of them. So I was really tuned into it because I watched these nonprofits because I'm telling you, this is the first time I ever heard anybody start to use this as a term. And I like to start terms. I like terms like thug and dug, like we love in Detroit. I like to start terms. But I heard this woman say, these shady ass nonprofits.
True.
It was like a bird flew in my ear. So I paid close attention to this young woman, and she was saying that they have to do the work, breaking up the land. Like she said, it's like being on a rock pile. If you're a tenant there, you have to work. Part of your commitment to buy a house, you're supposed to be an owner in 7 years, is that you have to work there. So they have work projects. And she said, we're over there breaking up the land, getting it ready for the developers. She said that woman, the director, got a whole block of land for $15,000. This is
well, that's those land bundles that they're letting these nonprofits get. Don't forget that part. And then you just said something else. That's why I thought that was supposed to be a land trust, because you're supposed to be able to work, maintain a home and something else, and then eventually you're supposed to be able to purchase them. I just haven't seen anyone who has ended up purchasing them. So I would like to see the agreement around that. I know that that's what they say about the homes, but we know the devil is in the details, so we would need to see the agreement around that.
Yep, and they're building more of them.
Well, so another part, what's going to happen when they close off this 375 interchange?
So white people can come back and walk?
Yeah.
Yep. Because the purpose of
get the money from that.
Right. Oh.
Because we really don't have enough to do in this city besides shut down
libraries,
the intersection. For you to be able to get somewhere. We really don't have more important things to do. That's a great use of our time and our resources, is to shut that down. So I agree with you. So these new rich folks can have a place to walk, because there's not enough places to walk or ride your bike in this city, right?
We
keep investing money into these types of concepts. And I don't know if Detroiters really understand that the end game is to displace you.
And also not have every one of these developments, it's not just that you can't just watch these developments like that's something new happening. Every single dollar of it is taken away from the public trust and lining their pockets. If I pay you for every development that you get, and then all you do is build more because you're getting more money from that.
And who's gonna own it? When you make this walkway, is this gonna be some privatized pathway like what they're doing downtown? Remember when they let how Dan Gilbert purchased what's that called, Farmer Street, right over there on the other side of where he's developing there now. He's got his 100-foot skyscraper. You used to be able to drive up and down that street. Now he's bought it. He was supposed to create like a green space over there, and it was supposed to have like this whole, like you ride your bike. It was supposed to be a whole streetscape. 6 years later, we haven't seen anything yet. And that's why I'm wondering, when they talk about closing off this freeway, this interchange or whatever, who's gonna own that? We keep losing.
Okay, I have a really important point about the tax captures that I don't want to get lost here. Let me remember this. The tax captures, the bond money from the libraries and the Detroit public schools, The only ones that are losing that up now beyond 25% of our library money. Only the libraries and the schools are getting their tax captures taken from them. Wayne County Community College, Detroit Public Schools, and Detroit Library are losing our tax captures to pay for the Detroit Institute of Arts, the Detroit Zoo, and Little Caesars Arena.
What was the second one? The DIA, and what was the second one?
The zoo, the Detroit Zoo gets 100% of their tax captures. This is per the agreement in the bankruptcy. So the Black institutions, which are Detroit Public Schools, Detroit Public Libraries, I'm talking about the usership, okay? The majority of the residents of the city of Detroit that use Wayne County Community College, it's a historically Black college.
Yes.
Wayne County Community College loses its tax captures so that they can go to Little Caesars Arena, to the Detroit Institute of Arts.
And pay for empty parking lots, yeah.
But Detroit Institute of Arts is taking money from the Detroit Library, and what we need to do is establish signage that shows people going into the DIA that they are taking money from Detroit Public Library right across the street. Our branches are not open because of this brokenness. It's not because of COVID, believe me. They don't have any intention of opening all these branches up. This is what the tax captures have done to Detroit. They have taken
But the DIA has always been
looting,
synonymous with taking away from the real resources that we need when it comes to education, and whether or not that's directly with the schools or with the libraries. They have always done that. And yet again, people supported to pass another millage for them. I just don't understand it.
It was 3 counties. 3 counties supported that. Okay, so Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne County supported it. The DIA before that passed a millage that they would not allow the African American Museum and the Historical Museum to go with them on that millage. You know why? They said if the suburbs had to vote for it, they wouldn't pass. In other words, leave the Black Museum off of there, because the suburbs aren't going to support it, but they supported the DIA, which then said that it wouldn't go for another millage after the bankruptcy, and it just did. Now they're over there fighting, and the director is under fire, and they lost all these board members.
Yeah, because I got an email about that. Let's take a caller. Good morning. Welcome to the Nicole Small Show. You have a question or comment? Hello, welcome to the Nicole Small Show. Do you have a question or comment?
I do. Last week, Scott Vincent at council meeting was lobbying for another millage for another millage for the African American library, African American Museum. I can't remember the other one right now. And then he also wanted to pay for the library. He wants to put the library in the general fund. And I'm like, well, we already pay for,
Yeah, we already made an agreement to pay for the libraries.
That's exactly what I told him. We were already paying it. I said, so now we got to pay for it twice. We're paying for it in the millage. Now you're going to put it on the general fund too? No, you can't do that.
Who was lobbying?
Well, why?
I didn't get an answer.
Well, you know what would be great? If he would go and ask some of his donors who contribute to his campaign fund to go ahead and make sure that they pay the piper. How about that? Because the zoo, and he associates himself with these people with the DIA, and he supports them strongly as well. Then how about he should go to his buddies and tell them to pay the piper and to pay up? Why should we pay again when we're already paying? The problem is nobody enforces it.
That's exactly what I asked him. So anyway, he's trying to sneak it over on us. He thinks we don't pay attention.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he's good for that.
I'll let you guys know that. And then I asked him, what, just the main library or all libraries? What are you talking about?
Oh, he didn't want to answer that. I know.
I didn't get any answer. It was on last week. I had some hard questions for all of them. Right behind your call to Brenda, when the staff member died.
Yes. No, this.
That same thing.
Well, thank you so much for the call. But see, Elena, this is.
Check that out.
I will. I am. I'm gonna go back on there. I'm gonna check it out. See, Elena, this is the problem. We don't have a legislative branch that does checks and balances. First of all, when all of these dollars come from Detroiters, there should be a mechanism in place, a tracking mechanism called checks and balances, to find out where our dollars are going and how they're being used. You know, and I don't believe that, I mean, the way that our leadership has allowed for the city of Detroit to be taken advantage of is absolutely disgusting. I mean, you talk about the violations of this dear city is unconscionable. And it's not because we're losing as much as we're giving away. We're literally handing over everything to these people who don't even live here.
Because Duggan is not a mayor, Duggan is a pimp.
Yes. Yes, now that he is.
He stands there and markets us and sells us off to his Johns. Those
and
Johns,
you know what he does?
Are all the builders.
And he has his prostitutes to make sure that, you know what, they dress up all nice and pretty, you know, to be very persuasive to the people for them to hand over their own interests, because that's what's happening. We're handing over our own interests each and every meeting. It just doesn't stop. It gets worse and worse. So let's switch gears a little bit, because it is almost 9:15. Let's talk about this defunding the police concept. I think the messaging needs to change, because so many people, when they hear defunding the police, and let's keep in mind, we do have a high rate of crime in this city. So when people hear that, rightfully so, a lot of them automatically become very guarded, and they're saying they don't want to hear any parts of it, right? Because they think that what you're going to do is take all of the safety out of the neighborhoods, and we've left a lot to be desired right now with talking about safety in the neighborhoods. Downtown is one thing, but when you go into your neighborhood, it's another. What do you think about the thoughts around reframing the messaging?
The messaging of defund the police is really not, it falls very flat in the Latino community. If you talk about defund ICE, everybody's down for that, because ICE has only damaged, only hurt. But the police, you don't necessarily always, you're taking a chance, of course, with traffic stops, of course, with domestic violence, of course. But if I've called the police when my house gets broken into, you know, not that they've been any help, but I have to have an insurance report. You call the police for a particular function. And I think the majority of people, the regular people on the ground, can't imagine life without a police department. They can't imagine it. But I will say this. I think about this all the time, because the helicopters are overhead all the time right here.
And these drones.
If you think of starting a new way of describing, imagine a library instead of the helicopter. Imagine how many buses could be purchased instead of the surveillance and the helicopters. It's a different thing it would be important to defund the police state. It's not defunding it, though. It's the reason we don't have money in the libraries is because we have a huge amount of money that goes into surveillance. We don't have money into all these other things, not only because of tax abatements and tax captures, but very, very misappropriation of funds toward policing. Instead of we don't have community centers. We don't have anything. All we have is police, and we have these playgrounds that the white people got. So if they're not paying taxes,
dog parks and bike lanes,
we got things that the regular, ordinary people don't use and don't need, including all this surveillance.
So I hear you on that. Where I struggle sometimes is that in the conversation, those are the resources that are most often conveyed to the public as we should use the money in this manner. And I'm going to be honest with you. You know, you can open up all the libraries that you want to. I do think that there's more of a struggle for people to utilize the libraries as opposed to years ago, a couple decades ago. But even more importantly, I think we need to focus on making sure that people have job security and housing security first and foremost. And how do we get back to that? Because you can open up all the rec centers you want to. You can open up all the libraries that you want to. That's not going to deter crime. More likely than not, what will help to deter crime is actually opening up the opportunities to allow these people to get some of these jobs. We cannot afford to keep allowing our city's legislation to keep giving away again all of these tax subsidies for these huge projects that which they do bring jobs into the city. They just don't bring the jobs to Detroiters. And I have not seen, again, a concerted effort to make sure that Detroiters have access to these jobs. They tell us one thing, but I guarantee you, Elena, if people took a look to the reality and what is actually happening, they are overlooking the majority of our people who apply for these jobs. And let me say this, it's just like everything else that we've discussed here today. If you're not on the inside, you probably don't really even know that these jobs are going to be available. Right. Even when they do all of this massive PR, oh, Chrysler is hiring, this person go to Detroit Works or whatever. They are not employing all of these Detroiters like they should.
Let me just say this, Nicole, and I know I'm going to just mention this because you're a candidate for a citywide office. Mm-hmm. Citywide. I passed by Denby the other day. Across the street from Denby, right across the street, there's a string of duplexes that are all boarded up. There was a time in Detroit where you could go to school by crossing the street. And every one of those duplexes are just empty. And if you go all the way down Maras, all the way down Morang, all the way down Kelly, you see literally blocks and blocks and blocks of boarded up houses. If there was how creative would we have to be? How brilliant do we have to be to say, the Carpenters Union, every other skilled trades that supposedly is coming into Detroit. If you say you're going to go to Denby, and by the time you finish at Denby, you're going to own that house across the street because you lived in it and worked in it and fixed it up. If you were in the Votex, and there's enough houses in Detroit that are empty, that are waiting for Duggan's demolition contracts, that could have been, somebody could have been assigned that house, a teacher, a crew of people, boys and girls, men and women, but anybody in between, anybody who wants to call themselves anything could be in those houses. I'm telling you, Latinos over here, people that come from Mexico and other places are like, I'll take that. Live in that home, work on it, fix it up, and by the time it's finished, it's beautiful, but nobody is saying you have the skills to do this, and it's not an innate skill. You have to learn it. Somebody has to teach it. No one has taught anybody how to change out a toilet so that it doesn't run. Nobody's taught how to change out electricity so it doesn't burn your house down. These could be people owning homes and taught all those skills. Can you imagine the pride of a family that got one of those houses and was able to fix it up with the leadership that supposedly... We need leadership that doesn't hate Detroit. This is what we need. But every single school around there could be reopened, and every neighborhood could have those houses built back up.
So I agree with you, putting resources, when we talk about defunding the police, putting more resources back into having more educational opportunities available. And let me tell you why I say that. Is because there is a deficit within our overall curriculum of DPS. There are some programs that need to supplement our current curriculum. We definitely know the arts. We have lost a lot when it comes to the arts and with recreation.
Because they gave it to the nonprofits. They gave it to the nonprofits to be able to say, okay, Living Arts, the director of Living Arts was making $150,000 a year to put some programs into some schools. Why isn't there a department head in Detroit Public Schools that is responsible for putting art into every school like we had before these takeovers?
Let's talk about the homeless population. Okay. All of these buildings that you're talking about, there are quite a few people who are skilled, who happen to be homeless. There are a lot of people who are one unemployment check away, or one lifting of an executive order away from being homeless, right? When the doors open back up. So I think that that's another conversation that people don't really understand. Another aspect of defunding the police that a lot of people don't really realize is that, listen, we have all of these other empty buildings. Instead of selling them to Life Remodel for $1, we need to figure out, you know, if you want to have more sustainable communities, allowing for some of these people, again, to go fix up these places, right? And also give them a place to live. We have a lot of veterans who are homeless, right? There's a certain skill that comes with that as well. But when we talk about defunding the police, there's also this narrative that, you know, people can police, residents can police their own communities. Mm-hmm. And one thing I really couldn't understand is, so are you telling me that, I mean, what would be the criteria for you to be the person to police your own community? How do we get beyond that? Because I don't know if a lot of Detroiters would feel comfortable with that, even though the majority of us police in our own community anyway, because the police won't come.
Right. You're going to make arrests on people?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I think that they need to understand that as well. I don't think that we could afford, in my opinion, to eliminate, you know, police officers. But this budget is huge. And we need to take a look at how every year there's an increase in the police department's budget, but we don't see a huge decrease in crime. So is that really getting us to where we want to be?
And there's decreases in all the things that could reduce crime, because there's a pot of money. It's not just like, there's a finite amount of money. So all that money that goes to first of all, look at all the money that Dan Gilbert gets to not pay in taxes. Dan Gilbert decide where the jail is going to be to get all the Black people out of downtown. Judges, lawyers, defendants, families, everybody else, because he wants for downtown to be only Dan Gilbert's white people.
Yes.
No question about that. So they let him do it. So the county commission, everybody else allows this bond money to be completely languishing while we paid for a jail because there were so many suicides and so many human rights violations. Even the feds wouldn't put any immigrants in those jails, and because of the violations. They didn't meet the criteria for having federal inmates, which is ICE detentions. That's why they were all in other places. People, when somebody gets arrested by ICE, they wouldn't be in those jails because there was too many human rights violations. So they're good enough for Detroit residents, but they're not. The feds wouldn't even allow them to use those jails.
Well, I also think that there needs to be some type of conversation around using one of these buildings to create another homeless shelter. Listen here, you living out on the streets, I don't care how mentally sane, living in poverty is a mental illness in itself, okay? Because all you do is figure out how to survive from day to day, all right? That type of mental anguish on somebody can definitely be daunting. In addition to that, after someone has lived on the streets for so long, if you think that hasn't challenged them mentally, you're out of your mind. So where is the money for that? Why don't they take one of these empty buildings and create a homeless shelter instead of doing what Southwest Solutions has done? You understand what I'm saying? And where are the efforts around that? What is the HRD, the Housing Revitalization Department, doing in the city of Detroit to make sure that they lessen the number of people who are homeless, to make sure that you offer them more resources? I think that if we're going to talk about defunding the police, it's about funding more programs like that as well. But the other, and these shelters are they're always over capacity.
But the other thing is, it's shameful to have $500,000 condos being built while there's so many people that are losing their homes. Yeah, there has to. People think that minimum wage is the problem, and it's not the problem. Maximum wage is what needs to happen. There needs to be some kind of a lid on the amount of money people can make off of these developments. There needs to be a top on that, because this is a direct causation of poverty, is that kind of wealth. Wealth is the problem, not the poverty. It's it's absolute maldistribution of income that is causing this. you have all these people that are walking around here just living like it's a playground while you got other people under the bridge or sitting at intersections begging for money. I've never seen a Detroit like this. This is a place
and look at what they're doing on a service drive off of 94 over there, not too far from you, like how they've created these camps. You know, I mean, they take from tree to tree, they'll put like the tarp or whatever over there, then they'll have their tent up under. I mean, people are living right there along the service drive of a freeway. That's the all year round.
Yep. You see them
all year round.
10 cities underneath they're out of they're not at Michigan Avenue. And then you have these other people in tents drinking booze outside of the restaurants.
Yeah.
There's all these different parallel universes going on at the same time. But there's no way that we should have this kind of wealth in this city when we have that kind of poverty. And you couldn't have that kind of wealth if it weren't for poverty. It's creating.
Which is why I always say people need to be careful. There's a resurgence of downtown and more so brick and mortar, but there's not a resurgence into the Detroiters and the neighborhoods. How have our quality of life improved drastically and really changed? It hasn't. And if you're not going to have a resurgence into the neighborhoods, then you don't have a resurgence of Detroit, because the neighborhoods, we are Detroit.
We also have the highest number of people sick with the pandemic in the whole country. In the whole country, we're leading the country in the pandemic.
But a third of the state is vaccinated. Now, what does that tell you? Now, what is that? Somehow there's a disconnect somewhere around here.
That's probably a lie.
Yeah, there's a disconnect around somewhere around here. But you know, it is an election year, so nothing is beneath these politicians to lie about. We already know that they'll say whatever they have to say to try to sell themselves as something other than the tools of our own oppression. So that's the way that I feel about it. But I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Elena. This was a great conversation, as always. I appreciate the wealth of knowledge that you bring around these issues. And let's definitely do a Facebook Live out and about. Like, let's walk the neighborhood one morning and show so the Detroiters can actually see these homes that we are talking about.
I will be glad to do that, because you have to see it to believe it. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
All right. So that's our show for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow we will be back at 8 a.m. on the Nicole Small Show right here. Please join us. Be safe and have a great day. Oh, you know what? I want to tell you, there is a picket today. It started at 7 a.m. Laborers Local 1191, Operating Engineers, and IBEW Local 58 at the Cadillac Stamping Plant. There are 2 non-union contractors who are working there now. 9501 Connor Street, 9501 Connor Street. They are picketing there today. All right, so I'll be back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Again, be safe and have a great day.